Good morning, second grade friends. Ralph S. Mouse. Let's see what's happening to Ralph. Remember, he has to run that maze, and he's pretty nervous about it. That was just the timer on my sink, or on my stove. Okay, so it's in chapter 5, The Great Mouse Exhibit. Ralph spent the rest of the week dreading Friday. The days, in spite of all that went on in room 5, dragged, but the nights passed more quickly. As soon as the man with the transistor radio and the broom left room 5, Ralph squeezed under the door and ran into the next classroom. The pictures made of seeds were now hanging above the blackboard, but enough split peas and lentils had fallen to the ground to make a good meal for Ralph. In the kindergarten room, he discovered a dollhouse, which he enjoyed exploring. Still, even though it had a mouse-sized bed, it lacked the comfort of the ready-chewed mouse nest in the library. One night, however, Ralph had a narrow escape. Beside the book bag on the library shelf, he discovered an interesting contraption, something like a metal snail. Of course, Ralph had to investigate and found his back stuck to something he had not known about: Scotch tape. The rest of the night was spent trying to free himself. I'm sure you can see Zoe's butt now. When he had almost pulled his back free, his paws were stuck. When his front paws were unstuck, the strange sticky tape trapped his back paws and tail. Exhausted, Ralph managed to free himself as the first bus rolled up to the school. Wednesday morning, Ryan informed Ralph he could not sleep in his pocket any longer because Ryan's mother said his shirt smelled funny. Once again, Ralph's feelings were hurt. Ryan also said his mother had discovered the tiny peephole Ralph had nipped in his shirt. Zoe just can't help herself. Come over here. Come over here. She would, said Ralph. Ryan defended his mother. Maybe she's fussy, but she's a good housekeeper. That's why the hotel hired her, which was lucky for us. She really needed the job. Probably all mothers found something to fuss about, Ralph decided, even though his own mother was a poor housekeeper. He wished Melissa were fussier as he retired to the dark and dirty tunnel of her left boot. He missed the lulling lub-lub, but found staying awake in class and paying attention to Miss K much easier. The next day, someone dropped a woolly mitten, and it made a restful change from the boot. Thursday afternoon, Miss K said, "Ryan, don't forget to bring our guest of honor tomorrow." "I won't forget," promised Ryan, as if he did not know Ralph was lurking at the back of the room. The next morning, after his usual night of enjoying all the school had to offer a lonely mouse, Ralph stayed awake to groom himself because he wanted to look his best when he was the honored guest. The members of room 5 also wanted to look their best for the picture in the newspaper, and they came to school looking neater than usual. Even Brad was wearing a clean t-shirt. Ryan brought the finished maze to school and placed it on a table in the back of the room, far above Ralph's head. Drat, thought Ralph as he ran up Ryan's leg in the hopes of getting a glimpse of the test that lay ahead. Ryan quickly popped Ralph into his pocket before he had a chance to look. Just before the last period, when the Great Mouse Exhibit was about to take place, Ryan pulled Ralph out and took him to Miss K. "Welcome, Ralph," she said. To Ryan, she said, "Put our little guest of honor in the fishbowl on my desk. Then everyone can see him." To Ralph's horror, he found himself placed in a slippery glass bowl. Frantically, he scrabbled about, trying to find a way out. When he found there was no way to escape and no place to hide, he sat quaking with indignation, a wee, slick-kit, cow-roaming, Tim-roasting beast, just as the poem said. After the bell for the last period rang, the guests arrived. There were Mr. Tanner, the principal, Mrs. Seeger, the librarian, Mr. Costa, the custodian, and room 5's room mother, who brought 26 little bags of popcorn for a treat. The Great Mouse Exhibit was about to begin. So there's Ralph in the bowl. Let's see if you can see it. There you go. There's Ralph sitting in the fishbowl. "Where are the reporter and the photographer?" someone asked. "I'm sure they'll be along soon," answered Miss K as she welcomed the visitors. Then she introduced the guest of honor, who turned his back and tried to become invisible. She pointed out all the pictures of Ralph above the blackboard. As if I look like those, thought Ralph with a sneer. Then Mrs. K said some members of the class had stories and poems about mice they wanted to share with their guest. She called on Brad, who slouched in front of the room, announced that he wasn't much good at poems, and that his poem was sort of dumb. He read, "Ralph is a mouse. He's stupid, he's dumb. He's as bad as a louse. He belongs in a slum." With a triumphant look at Ryan, Brad slouched back to his seat. "Thank you, Brad," said Miss K, who seemed uncertain as to an appropriate comment. "That was very amusing." Ralph thought of several impolite things she could have said as he walked nervously around his prison, wondering how much longer before he would have to run that maze. He sniffed to test his sense of smell. Enclosed in glass, all he could smell was himself. A girl named Janet went next. "My poem is a limerick," she told the audience, and read, "A mouse once came to our school and quickly broke every rule. He got stuck in our paste, for he liked its good taste. So he said, 'I'll just sit here and drool.'" The audience laughed, and Janet, flushed with pleasure of her success, returned to her seat. "That's a lie. I didn't go near room 5's paste," thought Ralph, as he trotted nervously around the fishbowl to make sure his legs worked. Gordon, the boy who did not like to write stories and poems, was next. But before he could begin his essay, the door opened and a young woman entered, followed by a man hung with cameras. "Sorry to be late. We had to cover a big story about a truckload of chickens loose on the highway." The reporter from the Cucaracha Voice was out of breath. "Now go ahead with your program. Pretend we're not here." Flustered by the photographer prowling around and adjusting his lens, Gordon began to read. "Mice are rodents. They gnaw things, and they multiply rapidly." "They do not," thought Ralph. He had watched Miss K multiply by writing squiggles with chalk on the blackboard. He had never seen a mouse do any such thing. The photographer was now circling the fish bowl with the black eye of the camera aimed at Ralph. Click, click, click. "I hope he isn't around when I have to run that maze," thought Ralph, darting around the fishbowl, trying to avoid the evil eye. Gordon read on. The reporter scribbled. The photographer turned towards the audience. The class sat up straighter and smiled. Mice are harmful," Gordon read. "They destroy crops and food supplies. They kill trees by gnawing around the bark. Mice can be destroyed by traps, poisons, and cats." "That's mean," thought Ralph. "We aren't harmful on purpose. We're just trying to get along in the harsh world." Gordon continued. "It has been said, if you see one mouse, there are 25 mice hiding that you don't see." Ralph thought this statement over. It might be true of the inn, but it was not true of Sneed Elementary. The class was silent. Mrs. Seeger looked pleased, for she had helped Gordon find the information about mice. The reporter thanked Miss K for letting her visit. "Good story, great angle. Sorry she couldn't stay. Mayor cutting ribbon for opening of a new auto parts store. Meeting of the school board." With that apology, she dashed out the door, following the photographer weighed down with his cameras. All right, we're going to stop there. Sorry about Zoe interrupting us. See you later.